Rachel, how you doing? Thank you so much for including your work here. I want to comment on each of these, and I'm going to leave you with your question for the week. Okay, so this piece is you have this as indicated as one of your captivating and unique. So your first example, I respectfully, I disagree with you. I don't find this to be done very well at all. Let me describe why. And again, I don't mean to sound discouraging, and I don't mean to sound disrespectful. I just want to kind of graciously offer the reasons why I don't feel this is an effective illustration. And mainly, it's just really not indicating a whole lot of depth. It is indicating some depth, and I think the designer has used this pure white to allow those areas to advance in the composition, which by default makes the shadow areas recede. However, there's this area right here is completely flat. So we see a little dimension being created right here with the assistance of that white, allowing that white to advance in the composition, which by default, as I said, makes the other areas recede. And that's developing a little bit of depth. But over here, this is just purely flat. There's no indication of depth whatsoever right here on this entire portion of the illustration. So it really flattens out. I think it's antithetical to the development of this kind of perceived depth right here. So I don't consider this to be a compelling or unique illustration. I think it's haphazard. I think it's not fully developed, and I think it's forced. So again, I don't mean to be disrespectful and disagreeing with your opinion. I just want you to see how others might see different attributes in something that you see. Okay, this piece I think is really interesting. It just reeks with style, and I think it's actually I think that the technique kind of rings through to you can almost smell this scene. You know, you can almost smell and hear this scene. And if you can make that comment about an illustration, that's a really good indication that is a successful illustration. Okay, if somebody can say, man, I can almost smell that scene, or I can really almost hear what's going on in that scene. So I think this is excellent. Um, so my three-part question here. If this scene had a smell, what would it smell like? If this scene had a sound, what would it sound like? And finally, how do the placement of objects within the work create a feeling or focus, or how does it help communicate the ideas? Okay, so how does placement create a feeling? How does placement create focus? And how does placement create a communicative idea here? And then, of course, your fun questions are, what does this scene smell like? What does this scene sound like? All right. Now this is interesting because I don't necessarily think this is a bad design at all. I think that what all they're doing here is they're taking a logo that's been in place for many, many, many decades, and they're just adding kind of a modern twist to it. The modern twist being that this is a completely flat design. It's minimal design, and I think it's pretty effective. The days of gradients and the days of like these subtle gradients and this kind of bevel and emboss techniques, these days are gone. These days are like a lot of designers went crazy with the advent of digital techniques. So when we do this bevel and emboss, a lot of designers, and you can see where we have really a lot of ostentatious design in between roughly late 90s and 2010 or so, because it took about 10 years for designers to get over the kind of canned effects that are available in digital illustration. And I think it's great. I think it's a great thing for the industry itself that we're not dependent on tools to create communication. To me, that is the negative aspect of the digital revolution, is that it not forced, but it coerced designers to change their techniques based on technology and kind of abandon good, solid communication for modern technology. Does that make sense? If not, let me know. It's a really important notion, and I'd like that to make complete sense to you. So this is probably going to end up being more versatile. I know you said that it's not able to be placed over images as such because it is transparent, and I agree with that to an extent. But I think that that's part of the branding that has to be worked out by the actual branding of the organization. So that all comes down to where this would be placed. Okay, obviously you wouldn't be placing this over a very busy image because presumably being transparent, it would be very, very difficult to see. Okay, so again, just go ahead and address my questions about. You have some fun questions this week, so that's awesome. So, anyways, great job, very, very good work. I really enjoyed your post. So go ahead and let me know what you think about those questions, and we'll take it from there. All right, great job. Thank you very much.